closer than on my copy of his Son That Got Away is Sweet Loving Ways. It's got a Tropicana type feel to it, very sort of jazz, soft rock style, with some scintillating picking guitar from Paul, who's also on vocals. Nice and pleasant. Right, we've got Black Tie, White Noise, David Bowie from 1993. Reached the top of the album charts that year, and I'm going to do a brief review of it. A little bit first about a review that I've written. Neil Rogers producing, of course. It's not Let's Dance, but we do have a couple of instrumentals on this. In fact, the opening cut, The Wedding, is a very powerful intro to this album. Of course, it commemorates Bowie's real life marriage, which occurred before the making of this album, to the beautiful Miss World contestant, which I can't actually remember her name, and it's very much a dance album, but not quite as radio friendly as certainly the first side of Let's Dance. If we pick up on the opener, then The Wedding, there's an absolutely awesome bit of sax being played here. I don't know if it's the man himself who's behind it, but the album bookends with The Wedding and the wedding song, and so it's quite sort of not conceptual, but anyway, what could I suggest that I say about The Wedding other than the fact that it's an instrumental, the fact that there's some excellent sort of powerful rhythm, and it's got that sax. So Umman was his Somalian model wife, and she was an inspiration for many of the tracks. Back to The Wedding, a funk adaptation of the instrumental Bowie composed for his wedding. It fuses dance beats, distant backing vocals, and Eastern influenced saxophone cadences that set the stage for the remaining track list. Well, I think I can't sum that up any better than that. So to that track 2 then, You've Been Around. It's jointly written by, let's get this pronunciation right, it's jointly written by Reeves Gabriels, who plays lead guitar on it, and he's certainly a similar sort of guitar player to Adrian Belew in his sort of wailing style solos. There's once again some sax on here, courtesy of Bowie, and I had a quick glance at the lyric, and I think the lyric is about how his meeting of Umman changed his perspective on relationships, and obviously very positive, and that she brought him out of a sort of hollow sort of sense of not knowing where he was going moment, and faith in the future. That's what I think anyway, and an acknowledgement that she in her own right had sort of become a celebrity figure, so it was not a case of, you know, her tagging on to him. It was a question of them tagging on to each other, I suspect. It's a forceful track. track 3 is a cover of the Pete Brown Jack Bruce song I Feel Free, which appeared on the debut album by Cream back in 1966, I think, called Fresh Cream. This is a much more charged up version, it has to be said, and it features the splendid Mick Ronson on lead guitar, and it's described in some sort of sleeve notes, would that be right? It's described as techno funk, and what else have we got to straight? 1990s dance music. Bowie's vocals are very much like this, sort of with a sort of deep echo feel. It's okay as covers go. Next up is the fourth track, the title track. It's supposed to be the merging together of the symbolism of a wedding through the black tie with the jazz sort of improvised nature of the music. It's a pretty dynamic piece of work, and certainly a memorable track. As I flick to my notes, it features one I'll Be Sure on joint vocal duties alongside David, of course, and let's see if there's any other notable guests on this one. No, nothing to write home about anyway. So it's got that sort of very sort of flat type drumming, thudding drumming style, which is significant throughout, really. We've got a couple of drummers referred to in the slide notes on musicians and personnel. So, Jump, they say, notable for the extraordinary trumpet by Lester Bowie, not related to David in any shape and form. He's an American jazz trumpeter who died at the end of the last century, and he's certainly explosive on this track, which is a sort of slovenly up-tempo rhythm bordering on funky, which enables the said person, Lester Bowie, to indulge on some very sort of avant-garde styled saxophone work. Bowie really does like the sax, doesn't he? Next up is Night Flight, and this was written by one Scott Walker, and on the album at Wikipedia, the credit is for his birthnight name, Noel Scott Engel. It's sort of a floating sort of synth type rhythmic flowing song with some back end in the mix guitar. It's thoroughly easy on the ear, and certainly maintains the momentum that the album has sort of created. Very enjoyable track. I gathered up a couple of comments about the lyrical meaning to this Scott Walker, and I'll quote: Feels like this brilliant, challenging song is about the dirty war in Argentina. In particular, there seems to be a reference to the infamous death flights which the fascist junta used to eliminate left-wing opponents. Second comment, the poetic, nearly surreal description of evil men with their human quarry all alone up in the air with no escape and taking glee in their work is so haunting and effective. The raw meat fist you choke, glass traps opens and close, far more frightening and suggestive of the kind of horror reflected than more straightforward descriptions. Okay, well, of course, 1993 is what we're talking about, and let's just and as I'm not really an expert on just to say that Wikipedia confirms that, and there's a piece on the Argentine legislative elections, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Palace Athena is a curious sort of track. It has a sort of almost Orwellian sort of not chant but drone in the vocals, with the lead by David almost unrecognisable. It slides along rhythmically at a sort of steady pace that's got enables some trumpet to squeeze through, but it's a very, very dour sort of somber piece of music that may well be reflective of a marriage that happens in dark times. Anyway, that's my view. There's nothing wrong with the music, though. It's interesting music. It's music very creative, and certainly one can see the direction that Bowie was heading as he went into the mid-90s with Outside and others to come. Yeah, Miracle, Good Night is very much a Bowie's wanting to say through the song how much he's in love with Umman, and there's no disguising how much impact it's having on him through the lyric, which will be around somewhere. I love you in the morning sun, I love you in my dreams, I love the sound of making love, the feeling of your skin, the corner of your eyes, I long forevermore. I never want to say good night, miracle, good night. One of my personal favourites on this album is up next, Don't Let Me Down and Down. It's a sort of jazz sleazy ballad with some excellent piano on it, and David's vocal is so full of soul. It's almost a lounge type jazz ballad, reminiscent of possibly Daryl Hall, that type of searing vocal delivery against this sort of slow, deliberate jazz-like rhythm. And I was trying to work out who wrote it, and what we found was, courtesy of Wikipedia, is that it's written by Tara Mint Hembara and was translated into English for David to sing it. So there you have it. More about that Don't Let Me Down and Down, originally recorded in Arabic by Mauritanian singer Tara Mint Hembara, friend of Umman's, and that was done in 1988. Translated, as I said, and David found it in his wife's CD collection and decided to cover it as a wedding gift. One of those tracks, David said, that sort of in a diary-like way records the beginning of a relationship. A most obscure cover was the comment by the producer. And reflects on a reuniting of romantic balladry first heard on Young Americans on Win and Can You Hear Me. And now moving on to the next track, Looking for Lester, a jazz instrumental, some beautiful piano, trumpet on here. David's also on sax. Note that the electric piano, which is towards the end of the track, with the sort of brass behind, and it becomes almost sort of dystopian style. It's sort of frantically jazz vogue. Morrissey's I Know It's Gonna Happen Someday is a real tour de force, a real sort of gospel styled song where David really gets into it, very passionate, and there's a choir behind as well with strings. It's very much a nod to the great ballad singers of the past who've loved that tinge of sort of jazz feel to the songs as they use the full repertoire of their vocal cords to force you to stand up and take note. He's a very underrated singer, it has to be said, and this is a perfect song written by Morrissey, and a fitting sort of cover really on an album that's epic in some places. I absolutely adore this song, and there's some fantastic guitar playing at the end of it, courtesy of, I think, Neil Rogers, but I can't see it referred to. In fact, the credit is to one Wild T. Springer, a name that I'm not familiar with, but he's got the credit for the guitar solo on I Know It's Gonna Happen Someday. Wonderful 4.5 minutes. On the original release, the closer then is the bookending the wedding song. It sort of encapsulates sort of like the end of the wedding reception as we wind down with sort of slow, smoochy dancing before it's lights out and down towards getting down to the action, so to speak, to consummate the lovely day. And it's a lovely fitting end to an album which is full of quality songs. Not his best, let's be fair, but it's got a flow to it that I like, and I'm mighty impressed by the use of the horns throughout on this album. They're excellent.